Are you niggas hungry? Because this is the first episode. We have a wonderful guest today. Welcome to the Pajalas, the Viktor, James, Luke, Aryn show. We have a wonderful guest today. Soon to be future critically acclaimed published author. What do you want me to call you on this? Do you want me to just use
I write. That's it. I'm just a writer. I write for fun.
You're just a writer?
Yeah. Just a writer.
Pseudonym? Just a writer.
Just a writer.
Okay.
Fiction, poetry, nonfiction. I just write.
So featuring just a writer.
Just a writer.
Justin Ryder. That's what we're going to call you.
Justin Ryder.
Justin Ryder. That sounds like a porn star. Yeah. See, just riding dicks left and right. Is it chicks with dicks or is it dudes with boobs?
What do you mean, like as a preference or what?
I mean, just if you're out there riding dicks, is it?
I mean, I said I was just a writer. You came up with all the other stuff.
Fair enough. Let's get into this shit. So you, good sir, are if I can recall this correctly, you're a cosmic horror enthusiast.
I do enjoy cosmic horror, yeah. It's one of the influences. If there's a genre that it all kind of falls under, it's cosmic horror and then transcendental sci-fi.
Wait, what is transcendental sci-fi?
Transcendental sci-fi is a genre that is actually just kind of sits in sci-fi kind of as a whole, but there's certain authors that have definitely stand out as unique because of the transcendental kind of element. So Olaf Stapledon would be one. Arthur C. Clarke, who was also a Buddhist,
I know that
would be one.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you've seen the movie 2001, that would be transcendental sci-fi.
Okay, so I thought that was just Stanley Kubrick on like an acid trip.
It was probably some of that too.
Like Stanley Kubrick and Hunter S. Thompson are just chilling in a room tripping. He's like, you know what? We all came from monkeys, and then another monkey is gonna bash this other monkey in the head with a rock, and that was the first instance of black on black crime. But your face speaks.
Wait, you mean because they're monkeys?
I didn't say that.
That's deplorable.
I didn't say that.
That's totally where you were going with that. It took me a second. I was like, wait, what is the... Oh my God. On that shit again.
But continue.
Yeah, so that's kind of the influences. My academic background is philosophy and religious studies. And then I also have an art degree, like visual art. But philosophy and religion also influence my fiction writing. I feel like religion and philosophy also influence cosmic horror and transcendental sci-fi, or any horror and sci-fi when it's really good.
Well, how so?
Well, I mean, 2001 would be an example. Arthur C. Clarke is a Buddhist and also an agnostic. And okay. I mean, in 2001, those kinds of notions of like transcending kind of like our previous step, so they go from like the apes to the people to the star child floating out in space. And then also, there's the kind of agnostic notions, because what Dave Bowman kind of runs into, I mean, we would call it in almost every sense godlike, but at the same time it's very much like embedded in the material universe. It's not something necessarily like supernatural.
Okay Just out of curiosity, do you think God would be like an alien? Or not an alien, sorry I mean an alien AI. I just think that's like what the cosmic horror is, because like we don't actually know what shit would look like. I mean, I've seen the pictures of accurate biblical depictions of angels, and I'm not gonna lie, I was shit myself.
Dude, yeah, and I actually have some stories where I play with the multi-eyed angels from like Ezekiel, and it's apocryphal, but like the Book of Enoch, where like, there's a reason the first thing they say is like, fear not. And it's because usually like, it's this multi-eyed thing with wheels.
Dimensional being.
Yeah.
That looks like some shit out of a Zelda or Final Fantasy video game.
Yeah. You can also kind of see where those kinds of, like the Book of Enoch, I feel like it's influenced definitely games and cosmic horror and things like that.
I would just be like, why so many eyes? Is this what you mean by all seeing? Just so many eyes.
My personal opinion, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, which is the psychedelics and transcendentalism. They have some overlap. One of the things I think that people talk about when they have experiences with psilocybin or LSD is they see eyes everywhere. So I think it's possible that Enoch or Ezekiel or Isaiah, when they were writing this stuff, may have gotten into some ergot or something like that. The wheat had gone bad.
Ate way too much nutmeg and they're just tripping balls going like, hey, there's an angel. And it's just like a fucking like pigskin soccer ball just rolling down the streets.
Yeah.
All right. So why exactly are you gravitated towards this? What about this is really the appeal? You have an affinity for it. You have a very strong attraction to this particular genre. I mean, your works, which if you're willing to read some today,
absolutely.
Absolutely. I would love to hear them. I'm pretty sure our listeners would like to hear them as well. But
cool.
What is it that's so alluring?
So I grew up in a fundamentalist kind of evangelical Christianity. And one of the things about that is that you have this, like, who and what God is very clearly defined. It's God fits in a nice little package. God has a name. God has a son. God talks to you. And morality is black and white, quote. You kind of have all of the answers. And I think when lots of people, when they leave that kind of background, they tend to just become atheists. They don't typically examine more mystical forms of Christianity. They don't go into Buddhism, anything like that. And I became an atheist, a pretty militant one at that. But then I started reading Olaf Stapledon. He was an agnostic. He was also a philosopher, but he wrote fiction. He wrote science fiction. It was something that I realized, I think that like as a fundamentalist Christian turned angry atheist, I found out while reading Last and First Men, that my spirituality was kind of only just beginning. That if I was to take the scope and scale of the universe as serious as possible and my place in it, I end up as this tiny, tiny little thing. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And every time you answer a question, there's more questions behind that question and you get lost in it. And notions like God or the divine or anything like that become much bigger, even though I don't really believe in like a God that is interested in, the daily activities of humans or what they do in the bedroom or anything like that. It's the mystery gets bigger. Okay. And I think that's one of the things that happens in cosmic horror and science fiction. I think really good science fiction is like what makes it good is when it gets into the scope and scale of universes rather than, the scope and scale of our daily lives.
Okay. That's a lot to digest. In a good way. Good way. That was very clear. You need the assignment. Did the extra credit. Before we get onto your poem, I have a question. Why is it often all or nothing when someone leaves a religious upbringing? I didn't have a religious upbringing. What I had was, one of the few things that my parents did I really do appreciate is we were allowed to choose if we wanted to go to church or not. And it wasn't for me. And it wasn't from lack of trying. Like I tried a bit, fuck those people. But at that particular church, not fuck all people in the church. Yeah. That's a priest's job. But but I got to choose if I wanted to go or not.
Yeah.
And for me personally, my relationship with spirituality has always been like, do I believe in something that's there, that's greater than us? I don't rule it out.
Yeah.
It might be there. I just don't think it cares. Kind of like you said, what we do in the bedroom, what cloth we wear, what we're eating, all that good shit. It just never seems like there's any real middle ground. I hear from people who come from a religious upbringing like, oh, there's nothing there. It's like, well, why can't there be something there that's just as fucked up as humans are?
Yeah.
Especially if we allegedly come from it.
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens is when you have a religious belief, you have a conception of God. And if you come to realize that that conception isn't correct, then that's always how you've defined God. So like when I say I don't believe in God, what I mean is a God that created us and looks after us and hears our prayers and is vitally interested in our day-to-day lives. But at the same time, like Buddhism is absolutely fascinating. Many of them would call that a deity, not all of them. Quakers would be another one who historically are Christian, though there are also non-theist Quakers and Buddhist Quakers and Muslim Quakers and Jewish Quakers. But their conception is that if you have certain kinds of experiences, like if you fall in love or if you look at a night sky, you feel something in you that's divine. And what they believe is that everybody has something divine inside of them, and you want to tap into that. They want to nurture that and grow it. Yeah. And so for me, in my background, that doesn't feel like what the word God means. But I mean, a lot of people who've grown up in Eastern cultures are like the idea that God throws lightning bolts, and like that's not what they have ever meant by God. So I think that's why a lot of people, I think, tend to become atheists after leaving, like, say, Christianity, because what they mean by God is the Christian God. And if they don't believe in that, then it's, like you said, it's all or nothing. Like, I don't believe in this God anymore. There is no God. So, yeah, that was my experience. And I know many friends that I had that they also all became atheists. Like, that was their experience as well.
Thank you, really, for answering that. This is a really nice insight. This is a really nice backdrop. Because the more we've done this, we've recorded this episode, like, what, 4 times now?
Yeah.
Like
close to.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 times by now. It's nice to actually sit down and like actually see your reactions. Or every time you bring this up, I learn more about you, and you just become a more interesting person.
Oh,
in a great way. In a great way, you're a great person.
Cool. I appreciate that.
Just a writer. All right, so you have some of your works.
Yeah. What with time constraints and stuff, we'll stick to the poetry stuff. Though, yeah, I do have works of short fiction. And actually, in the context of God and specifically Christianity, I have one here called Struggle. I actually just read this at a little event called Church of the Eternal Hunger, and I realized as I had it in my list that several of the people there were clearly Christians, which, you know, great, cool. They didn't seem toxic in any kind of way or anything like that. But I'll go ahead and clarify this here as well as I did there. My poems are typically, they come from a place of fear. Like a lot of times what I do is I'll be camping, I'll sit out by a fire in the middle of the night by myself. And when, you know, that creepy feeling comes, I just get to know it rather than go and hide in my tent.
For the night is dark and full of terrors. For the night is dark and full of terrors.
Originally, the book that I'm working on now, which is going to be called To Unknown Gods, Psalms of Cosmic Horror from the Dark Woods, it was originally written as kind of like a collection of campfire readings. They're almost like horror stories for the campfire, but written in like a poetic form. So yeah, this poem is called Struggle, but again, it's not as blasphemous as it appears on its surface. Okay. It comes from a place of fear, so struggle. When he comes to claim me, I will not die. I will not give up this love to the dark. Hear the song the wind is singing through the leaves. Breathe deep the smell of the pines. Would you let him render you senseless? Is the song I hear sadder or sweeter than what you hear? Is my sunset brighter, my night deeper? Is it my soul embrace that will not be torn apart so easily? Say what you will, but I cannot believe that this deepest of beauty is mine alone. Let me hear that he is good. Say that he is just. Did Moses not plead for the lives of the innocents against him? Did not his own prophets curse him? Speak to me of his mighty hand. Were not Jacob's fists just as fast and just as strong? Where Jacob took to limping, I will take his head. I will tear the ladder from under his feet before he even reaches the ground. For this tired flesh is my house of worship, the place from which I come and where I will go, my womb and my casket. I am not resigned, and surrender will not be my final breath. When he comes to claim me, I will not die. I will not give up this love to the dark. But if his vile hand should take me, then let my struggle against him forever echo in these trees.
That was that
it was kind of blasphemous. But I think it's also kind of orthodox in a weird way. The notion of like Jacob having fists that are just as fast and just as strong is because, yeah, in the Bible, Jacob actually gets in like a fist fight with God. What ends up happening is God tells him that he's going to give him Israel, which literally means struggles against God. It means struggle. He had a limp after that.
You know, usually when a guy named Jacob tells me he's going to get into some fisting with me, I usually have a limp afterwards as well. The fist of God.
Oh my.
Oh my.
That sounds intense.
It is. It really is. I really don't know what to say. Like, I'm trying to think of something witty to say and all, but that actually really is thought-provoking. And I'm one of those people where, like, I'll read something like 3 or 4 times and then start piecing together everything.
Yeah. One of the things that influences some of the writing is Gnosticism. I mean, it existed for a while. 1st, 2nd, 3rd century, probably the most kind of like unorthodox Christianity, where they tended to look at God as, people typically understand God, as the bad guy. The serpent was the good guy. The serpent was the one that was like, here, let's eat of this tree of knowledge. What can be wrong with knowledge? You need knowledge. And
ignorance is bliss.
That was one of the things I think that Gnostics were like railing against. Gnosticism means knowing. And so like they'll point to Solomon, who like God was like, I'll give you anything you want. And Solomon's like, I would like wisdom. So God gives him wisdom, and his life collapses. Like, wisdom was bad for him.
He's not wrong, though. I mean, that's literally the monkey paw right there. It's like, you want to know the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
At that moment, I would have just been like, yo, just like, let me like stay. Just turn me into a vampire. That's what I would say. I could become anything. I want to be a sexy, true blood vampire for like all eternity, but I want to be able to walk in the sun.
Yeah. So one of the things that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to like relate like in fiction is because you have to have something that people kind of want or that they desire. Otherwise they don't empathize with the protagonist, like the hero of a story. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to live forever. I would hate to live forever. I'd get bored or something like that. And I can't like now, like if experience isn't a good thing, I don't think that anything can be.
Right.
Like there's not, yeah. Like, if you're bored, that means your experience isn't a positive one. You need to fix your experience, not die.
Even if it's a negative one, there's people I know where they constantly make negative experiences because it keeps things interesting. Yeah. That friend of yours who dates, that bad boy where you're like, don't date this nigga. This nigga ain't no good news. And they get but I love him. And then next thing you know, it's just like, absolute Armageddon. And then they break up and they get back together and they break up and they get back together and all that shit again. Yeah. But it keeps it interesting. I never understood when people go like, oh, I would get bored.
Yeah.
Because even though humanity is predictable, humans also know how to like mask that shit to keep it interesting. And we do unpredictable things once in a while, which keeps it like on your toes.
Yeah. And I mean, just the stuff that we create and that we can learn. I mean, like, you're never going to watch every movie. You're never going to read every book. You're never going to know everything. Like,
right.
In fact, when you learn new things, you typically end up with 10 more questions for every answer you get.
Right.
And yeah, any story I read or something is always like, it becomes an influence. You want to expand on it. You want to explore it further. I feel like if somebody is comfortable with death, that means that your life just isn't worth preserving. You should really just try to improve your life.
I would just be like, I just think if you're that wise, you'd be wise enough to get a therapist.
Yeah, if I ever get comfortable with death, I think that's when I should get terrified, because that means I've actually at that point have hit a life that isn't worth living.
Do you have any stories about that?
I mean, the one that I just read was kind of about that.
Yeah.
It was like
that was a catch-22 question. So then, since we're on the topic of getting one thing, one wish. And not like the type of wish where it's like a Disney movie where it's like, oh, hey, I wish for $1 million, and then you literally get like a fucking million deers. And the genie's like, ha 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 ha, played you, nigga, and then like dips. It's like, no, you're just an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like one wish. Like the intent is known. What would you wish for?
Okay. Yeah. I have a poem about that even. So I would go with, so there's Faust by Goethe. Like, it's kind of a cliched story now. It wasn't so much at the time, even though it was actually a telling of another story called The Tragedy of Dr. Faustus. In it, there's this guy named Faust, and he makes this deal with Mephistopheles, who's essentially the devil. And the idea is like, it's the classic story of like, if you do this thing for me, you can have my soul. But the thing that he makes the deal with the devil about is not like money or eternal life or anything like that. It's life as full as it can be. So it needs to have all of the pain and all of the beauty, everything. And if he ever gets to the point where he says, okay, I can't take it anymore, this is too much, then the devil can have his soul. There's been like these other movies where like usually a guy is like, well, if I get this girl, then you can have my soul, Satan.
Which to me, I'm like, yo, like, you literally just could find another girl. It's called a prostitute. Like, you could pay her to do the same thing for like $30. She'll do anything. Anything.
And you get to keep your soul.
You get to keep your soul. I mean, unless the thing she does to you is,
soul sucking.
She's going to suck the soul out of you.
That sounded so tacky. That was not where I was going meant to go with that.
She's a succubi. She sucks and you buy. You just go.
I get it.
Yeah, she's bisexual. You buy her and she'll get sexual. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So yeah, this poem is called A Fireside Incantation to Agnostos Theos. Agnostos Theos just means unknown God. And yeah, it was partly inspired by that part in Faust, where Faust is like, yeah, I've tried everything. I've experienced so much. I've learned all there is to learn. What I want is for life to rip me apart in all of its splendor.
I would have been like, did you try turning it off and turning it back on again?
Right. Blowing in it.
Right.
So, Fireside Incantation to an Unknown God. I have no holy book but mystery, no guide but stars. I do not plead from a deadwood church that you send rain. I seek you as you are, not as I wish you to be. If you crush my soul to pieces, let these woods take its place. Even now my pleasures have their fount, and the stars behold my sorrow from their paths. When I depart, let be all that will be. Fullness is not found in contentment. I do not beseech you for joy. Press upon me eldritch exhilarations and love's sharpest pain. Enamor me with unreachable stars, my arms stretched out forever in intoxicating tragedy. If I come to know all things, do not save me from the implications. And if I love, let the truth that it will end illuminate its every manifestation. Heap upon me ecstasy and despair in true measure until all life within my inmost being is wrenched forth. Then let my soul expand to the forest, the continent, the world, and the stars, so that in your abyss I too will be stranded with them. Seize from me the sound and smoke of my faith. I do not know your name, nor have I ever, and I do not insist that you abide by my soul's withered pretenses. Here I will let be what is, and in silence I will wait on the unknown, whether you come to enlighten or to claim. And that actually kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with, yeah. Like, I think if people were inside my head, they'd go, oh yeah, you're an atheist. But, I mean, I feel like I'm an agnostic, and like, clearly, like, yeah, sitting out by a fire, there's something stirring that's moving me to write and say this kind of stuff, and yeah, so.
For the night is dark and full of terrors.
The night is dark and full of terrors.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't feel atheism. I mean, I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm going to have to read this a few times, but I'm not feeling personally atheism. I do feel agnostic. Because personally, for me, I always look at it as like, you just have questions.
Mm-hmm.
Something can exist and you not believe in it. I mean,
yeah. Like
we elect politicians all the time where it's like, oh, wonderful, Joe Biden. How are them fingers tasting?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, I elected this. I don't believe in it though. It just sounds like you have questions.
There's a philosopher a long time ago, William James, said that it was almost impossible for somebody to be an agnostic because if they think about the question for any amount of time, they'll lean one way or the other. They're going to think, oh, it's more possible this, or the other thing is more possible. If I think about like what I call God or what I mean by the word God, I don't think I believe in that, like an unknown kind of like the Church of the Eternal Hunger. Like there were Christians there and it was perfectly fine. I feel like when people like Christians and atheists or whatever, the idea that they're like dwelling in the presence of the unknown, like they can give each other high fives and hugs in that kind of situation. Right. It's the people who are like, I know what God is, and I know what God wants, and I know it's gender, and I know.
Do you? I'd be like, do you?
Yeah.
Do you have the receipts, Diane?
No way. I want to see the receipts.
Yeah, I can't get behind that. And I think it's not sincere. I feel like those people are more atheists than I am because they're the ones who are like, I know exactly what God is and what it wants. They don't try to deal with God as it actually is. So it's also funny that so many times, like you can read in the Bible, like Matthew 25, where it describes like progressivism. Like Jesus is like, take care of the poor, take care of the hungry, people in prison, the immigrants.
Let's eat some prostitutes, you know.
Right? All of that. And like somehow they read it and they get, I kick out the immigrants and hate the gays and the like.
You know,
it just,
how dare you abort a baby? It's like I'm pretty sure there's abortion in the Bible someplace where it's just like
the ordeal of bitter waters.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
that shit happened on House of the Dragon. Spoiler alert. She was like, hey, her dad was like, yo, you need to drink this shit because you might have fucked your uncle. And she was like, but I didn't fuck her uncle. She didn't. She fucked her knight. But she fucked her guard. But he was like, you need to drink this tea. So that way you don't end up having a baby.
Yeah.
Uncle. And it's just like,
that sounds similar.
That doesn't sound like abortion to me. That sounds like Plan B.
Yeah.
Plan T?
Well, there's the Nirvana song Penny Royalty. Penny Royalty is I can't remember what they're called, but yeah, it causes miscarriage. Yeah, abortion's been around for a long time. It's also weird too that like a lot of Christians will like look at Jesus, who lived in Rome, like LGBTQ, like they had many letters, literally, and never once brought it up.
Literally, Rome was like, "Hey, everybody's allowed to do whatever you want," and it's like you got a bunch of Roman nobles who are like, "Oh yeah, these are my gang of little boys," and you're like, excuse me, and the Romans were like, "Oh yeah, that's just how it be sometime."
And abortion, it was very common at the time, and dude never says a word about any of it. He's just like, yeah.
She's like, okay, yeah, like she had a baby. She was gonna have a baby, and then she said, not today.
Not today.
Some people have twins, or gonna have twins, and then they get it aborted, and then it becomes, double homicide.
Yeah, double homicide.
Yeah, that kind of belief in God, that's got to be closer to idolatry. And when you find God and he, like specifically he, is in agreement with you on everything. I can't get behind that.
That God is literally, I think, best personified in the amazing, phenomenal, timeless show, The Boondocks, where Uncle Ruckus, no relation, finds out that he has cancer, terminal cancer, he's going to die. So he has a prophecy, as a premonition, a prophetic dream. That he goes
it's Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. He goes to White Heaven, and who greets him at the gates it's fucking Ronald Wilson Reagan.
Yeah.
And he sits here and talks about how like God doesn't really care about what we do on earth or racism. As long as you sit here and you feel one kind of way, you can come into White Heaven. And that's just the same God, I feel like. I'm like, this is just a 1950s angry white man.
Yeah, for sure. So like you look at the like Catholic Church, and I mean there are many, many good Catholics. But that being said, the position of the Catholic Church is that women don't have positions of leadership. You can be a nun, but you can't be a priest. And like behind that, I mean, for a lot of people, they'll think, oh, that's just tradition or whatever.
No, that's misogyny.
Yeah, and it's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like because you have a penis, you get in touch with God in ways that other people on the planet just can't.
Right. Just because they were born that way. Like, how dare you McRiblets bitch. Like, that's what you get for having a period. Sat on my white couch, fucking slut. Like, I don't understand it, because I'm like, okay, if anything, if God had a gender, I would think it would be more akin to a feminine one, because that's where life comes from. Vaginas.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it 6 times. Vagina, 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 vagina.
I don't know what God would do with a gender. I mean, like what you said, if it's like an alien thing where there's just something so much more advanced than us that it checks off all the boxes of essentially God, like maybe they play around with gender. I don't know. And earlier when I said the thing about having a penis, like I was talking about gender specifically within the context of the Catholic Church.
No,
I know. Yeah. I know, like
cisgender.
Penis doesn't mean your gender.
Right. Right. But like, because someone has a penis and goes, I'm a rough and tough male. It's like, okay, so if anything, I would think you're less godly by default. Because like, what do you know about birthing life? Like, cradling something from nothing, literally from nothing.
Yeah.
Within your own boundaries of your shell.
Yeah.
And then bringing that into the world, or failing to bring that into the world, or deciding, nah, my vagina, my rules, and just ejecting that. Like, delete it. Delete us, fetus, delete us. There we go.
Fetus, delete us. That's another weird thing too, is when people have such a conception of the notion, like, if you're going to say that a political or civic decision, right? That like it's going to be forced on everybody. And your argument is that the soul enters the zygote at the moment of conception. When people are in that kind of religion, they will teach a child who's like 5 or 6, this is how the entire cosmos works.
And it's like, no, you don't. This is not even how this block works. People don't realize, like, even in their own cities.
Yeah.
Like, there's a bubble. I mean, except for New Yorkers, because, I mean, they just don't give a fuck. But people just don't realize, like, in their own cities, what your little castle, your home is not like what your neighbor's shit is.
Yeah.
Like, some people grew up where you're that girl who was trapped with her siblings for like, was it 15 years in the basement? And she she escaped. She escaped, and she's just living next to, you know, quote unquote normal people. And then you get fucking Blue Ivy Carter, where it's like, okay, but your mom's Beyonce, your dad's a camel, so like, you know, you're sitting there going like, everyone's little bubble is not the same.
Yeah, for sure. But the extremity of that, like that kind of claim that you're asking, you're deciding laws based on a soul. Once a sperm and egg meet, there's a soul. Like at the moment of conception, it just enters in. You don't need a central nervous system. Doesn't matter if it can feel pain or anything. Like none of this makes sense. You can't ask everybody to get on board with that. Because you know God directly.
like I'd be like, you know, call him up right now. Show me his text messages.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't.
No way. I want to see the receipts.
We are actually running out of time. This has been a really fun one, though.
Cool.
This has been a really fun episode.
Yeah.
Especially for our first episode. We're tackling. Now, here's the fun part. You ready? So, my producer, Steve, wonderful guy, I've talked to him a couple of times, is a Christian.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, right, King? He's a Christian, but he's like...
You could have told me this before we started talking. No, I'm kidding.
You know, I honestly, I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
Because he's just such a down-to-earth, chill person.
Yeah. I love Christians.
But he's open to having the conversations a lot of other Christians don't want to have. And that's what attracted me to this.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really cool. So he might think something differently, but he wants to have those conversations. Or if that conversation comes up, it's not just let's just shut it down. Some people think, like me, just eat the baby.
Oh, I thought you said eat.
No. This is not dumplings. No.
Or Hills Have Eyes. Have you seen the Hills Have the old one from the?
I haven't seen the old one. I've seen clips.
There's like a cannibal runs into a trailer and actually starts going, "Eat the baby," because there's a baby.
I saw the quote unquote the new one. I mean, it's from 2005. Holy shit! The girl from Lost, was it Emily the Raven or something like that? The Australian chick. She had a baby on Lost, but they kidnapped the baby.
Yeah,
but I don't think they eat the baby.
I don't remember if they eat the baby or not.
I mean, that's one way to get stem cells, right? Would it be like veal?
I don't know. There's stem cells in embryonic fluid. I don't know why people who are quote unquote pro-life, anti-choice people are like, still whining about stem cells, but they do.
I just always think of South Park when Al Gore just cracks it like the skull of a fetus open.
And they're like drinking them.
It's like a fucking Capri Sun. Yeah, I'm on that bullshit. It's better than the Ronald Reagan conversation.
Yeah,
that would have
had to be.
If I could take one thing from the other conversation, it'd be the Ronald Reagan commentary. Thank you so much for doing this 4 times over.
Oh, dude, it's all good.
Do you have any closing comments?
Probably around late spring, I should have a book out called To Unknown Gods, Songs of Cosmic Horror from the Dark Woods by Mathew Isaacs. Did I ever say my name? My name is Mathew Isaacs.
You said the whole time your name was just a writer.
My name is not Justin Ryder. No, my name is Mathew Isaacs. And that book should be coming out late spring. I also have a poem coming out in Bewildering Stories, probably in early December. And Bewildering Stories is full of great reads, especially if you like speculative poetry. But they also have short fiction and sometimes novellas and even full-length novels. So there's a lot there.
Ooh, I want to read this. Yeah. I want a sneak peek. I've never been to a movie premiere or a book premiere.
Well, I mean, it's just an online publication, so I'd say but yeah.
Can I just be a groupie for like a night?
I mean, I don't have any other groupies, so you'd just be like the one person. So sure, you want to go hang out?
Wonderful, splendid. Just be like, I got to be this aspiring author's groupie.
Do authors have groupies?
I feel like Stephen King would.
Maybe. I'm picturing like George R.R. Martin. Like
he definitely has groupies.
He does.
Like, I've definitely seen pictures of him surrounded by, like, insanely beautiful women. You know, he's old, so I'm not going to comment on his looks. We all, you know, if we all get old, we generally all look busted as fuck unless we're, like, Vera Wang with glasses on, not Vera Wang without glasses on. But vastly different. You look at her with glasses on, you're like, oh my God, you're not a day over 30. She takes that shit off, and it's just like, damn.
Yeah.
Double homicide.
George R.R. Martin, though, I mean, it's not just the age. He wears that funny hat and the suspenders.
He just
and
looks
stuff.
Overtly British. I don't even know if he's British. He just looks like he eats like...
Could be like a Tolkienian influence or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
But well, he writes a lot of sci-fi and stuff, too. I've never read Game of Thrones, but I've read some of his short sci-fi works.
Obviously, Game of Thrones is the most popular one, but apparently he has like other series that are actually like more highly reviewed.
Yeah.
Than the A Song of Ice and Fire series.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll see if he finishes them. I think they're done. I think the books are done. I think he's just sitting on it until he dies. So that way, whatever backlash happens, he's like, well, I mean, I don't really give a fuck because I'm not here anymore.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anytime, always
Just
fun.
a writer, Mathew Isaacs.
Just a writer, Mathew Isaacs. Yep.
And that was a wonderful discussion. We'll definitely have you back on here.
Cool.
And
anytime.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the first episode of Vajalas.
I don't know what... I mean, I know...
It's the acronym. Victor, James, Luke, Aryn.
Oh, I didn't even know Luke was in there. Victor, James, Aryn was how I was saying it.
Yeah, Vajalas.
Okay.
Vajalas also just sounds overtly like...
It sounds
like you shouldn't say it. It sounds like it's like it could be sexual. But it also sounds like it could be like a disease or like... Yeah, he's got vajalas, kind of like scurvy.
It makes me think of vajayjay, like when people say vajayjay.
I'm good. I'm glad then.
Okay.
I mean, like...
I kind of felt like that would make you smile. So
it does you make me smile. Aww. You're beautiful.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We have a litany of wonderful shows coming this season. And yeah, the next one's going to blow your fucking mind. Peace.
Bye-bye.
I press the charge!